Good news, Mike.
What do you got? I'm ready for some. Everybody out there is ready for some good news. So if you got some,
I replaced the fill valve on my toilet.
The fill valve.
That's complicated stuff for me. I mean, I don't know how much it would cost to get a plumber, but I can't imagine you'd get a plumber up to an apartment in New York City for less than $200 or $300. This was $27.
It's a lot cheaper than replacing Bill Clinton's fill valve, I'll tell you that.
But I'll tell you, today we're mostly interested in another Bill Gates. You had a story.
Yeah, Gates, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you had a story on TruePundit.com that the UN has been forced to admit that there's a polio outbreak coming from the vaccine.
You know what's amazing, though? I talk about it today on the podcast I did this morning. We talked about this before months ago, you and I. I think you and Charles have talked about this, maybe even predating that. I don't know, but it goes back. All these days and all these shows like meld together, and I don't know what the hell's going on a regular basis. But I remember a long time ago, we were talking about vaccines and Gates and how he was paralyzing kids in Pakistan and India, and now he moved on to Africa, and I think even I'm going to say Poland. I don't know, or maybe I'm just putting Poland together with polio. I don't know, because I am a Polak. Polio land. I am a Polak, so for some reason I was thinking. The bottom line is we've talked about this months ago, and now of course it was in Zero Hedge and some other places, and now everybody's like, "Oh, this is newsworthy." It's like, what do we have to do to break news? We have to take out like a billboard in Times Square and be like, "Hello, we said this months ago, years ago." We're dealing with information now. We're dealing with the story on Drudge. Drudge is pay to play. I said this in tweets 3.5 years ago. I said, this guy's being paid for links. Wow. That's why he's not linking to little guys like us, because he's getting greased. And then we talked to the insider who wrote the book on him, and he says, yeah, he was getting paid for links. He may still be getting paid for links. These big news organizations were greasing him. He had his own pay to play scandal going on. I'm saying, yeah, I said this 3.5 years ago. I knew it was happening, and it'll be interesting to see his books, who is paying him to play. You know what I mean? It really. And
but is it illegal or just unethical bad journalism?
I don't think it's illegal. I guess it's probably not illegal, but it kind of changes your, like we talked to Matt Leshak, who wrote the book on him. It changes your idea of what Drudge is. Yeah. If he's just a hired gunslinger, and guys like, X, Y, and Z on the right and X, Y, and Z on the left are paying him. Like, for instance, if the Washington Post is paying for all the links, I said that a long time ago. There's no doubt in my mind that the Post was paying him or greasing him for links, because I'm like, why does this guy keep linking to the Post? Their stories are always bullshit, right? So, yeah, I think it changes your opinion of him. Is it not moral? I don't know. I guess it depends on where your ethics are. Are there any ethics left? I don't know. I guess I'm stupid for trying to think that there are ethics or trying to operate under some kind of reporting standards of some type. It doesn't seem like anybody else's.
Are done, Mike. That's big news.
What happened?
Canceled the Kardashians after 20 years. Any
show?
sex robots published on this episode of
we don't
the
know
Drudge
yet.
Report?
We don't know yet. Drudge Report, sex robots, and monkeys seems to be his big deal. You know what I mean?
But it speaks directly, Mike, to what you and I have always spoken about, and what we are in part trying to combat with this direct-to-viewer sponsorship model that we've created with this show. People who watch know that we have just sort of a preview segment here where we let everybody know what we're going to be talking about, but the show is actually on subscribestar.com/TruePundit, patreon.com/TruePundit, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We're not getting paid to post stories, which, I mean, frankly, if somebody is advertising on your site, an argument could be made that they have influence over the reporting. Obviously, if it goes away, the reporting could stop. So by having this direct-to-viewer sponsorship, we've eliminated all the questions about this, and it's good that TruePundit.com is talking about Drudge doing it.
Well, I mean, Drudge has gone out of his way to stick it up our ASS, many times. So he's written around us. He's taken it's. So when I saw that going on for 2 or 3 years, I said, "Wait a minute, what's going on here? Why wouldn't he link to the source? Instead, he'll link to somebody who picks up our stories." And I was thinking, "Oh, that's weird. Well, maybe just because I'm the new kid on the block." And then after a while, I started to think, "This is a scheme. He's getting paid to do this. He's getting paid. So somebody will pick up our story, and they'll link to our story, right? They'll say, 'Oh, this was in True Pundit,' but you know that whoever picks it up is going to get all the traffic, and we get like just a little residual. Even if there is a link, we've had times where they say, 'Oh, this was in True Pundit,' and there's no link. It's like, 'Oh, thanks a lot.' You know what I mean? It's such a dirty business, but Drudge.
Well, and that's upsetting, Mike, because they say, 'Oh, what are you talking about? We gave you credit,' but obviously, if there's not a link, it's just so many fewer people will actually get to the site.
Yeah, we pick up from people all day long. Every story has a link. Every freaking story goes back to the source. Read more, and then it goes back to the source. You have to do that. That's because it's the right thing to do, right? You take a little bit of their story. Sometimes you can change it around or add stuff to it, and then you put a link. So it goes to that, it goes to the place. And we can tell by traffic who's clicking through things and things like that and getting to the source. And so can the people on the other end. That's why they don't care if you aggregate from their website, because they see exactly how much traffic your site is sending their site. And it's a win-win. But when you don't put in the link or you write around things, like if we do a story, okay, we did some stories in 2016 election. They were massive stories.
Yep.
And like Alex Jones would pick it up, and it would be on the front of InfoWars. Well, Drudge doesn't link to us. He links to Alex Jones, who mentions us. Right. It's like, wait a minute. And we get hosed. We get hosed on the traffic. I mean, all you need is like one. Back in the day, I don't think it's this way anymore because his traffic is so far down.
Alex
now
Jones?
Drudge is. No, Drudge. Drudge is like 50%. He's pulling 50%. I'm not talking about Alex Jones. Drudge is like 50% of where he was a year ago. His it's down 50%. It's crazy. People, obviously, he's pivoted to the left, and he's gone anti-Trump, so he's going to lose
readers.
a good amount of readers. And so, but it is what it is. We just keep plugging away, just like you. People take shots at us all day long. They diss us, and we keep plugging away. And slowly but surely, we keep getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Eventually, we'll be at a size where they're like, "Holy shit, how did they get that big? We weren't paying attention to them."
Right.
And that's the goal. But the Gates stuff that you and I have been talking about. Where's the White House, bro? Like, they don't see this? They don't see this guy's poisoning people all over the world. Then he takes his traveling roadshow from Pakistan and India and those parts of the world, and then he takes it over to Africa, and kids start to get sick. And it's like, that's one thing, okay? It's one thing if they weren't touting and paying all his back concerns in the U.S. with our tax money to develop a vaccine for COVID that we're supposed to stand in line and wait for to get that poison put in our arm. What? So I can end up in a wheelchair too? I actually like to walk. I mean, the doctor says I don't walk as much as I should, but when I need to go somewhere, I do like to be able to walk to get there.
Mike, let's talk about this for a second, because it's right here on the World Health Organization's page. They've released a press release saying that Sudan has identified a circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus. That's pretty clear what they're talking about.
Yeah. And Bill Gates strikes again, right? Now, my mom
This
had
doesn't
polio.
specifically name Bill Gates.
Well,
your mom had polio.
Yeah, my mom had polio, so I know what it's like. Thank God that for a vaccine, I wouldn't even be here, obviously. But so it's like a very nasty thing. Could really do a number on you. And it was big. And she was born in 44. So it was rampant, right? When she was a teenager. She got it when she was like 16, I think, 16 or 17. Whoa. So at the end of the 50s, she got it. So, and it did a number on one of her legs, like just vicious. So, but what I'm saying is, this isn't the first problem. And you've talked about it before with other guests, and it's all over the place. Like the Melinda Gates scheme in Africa with prenatal care of pregnant African women, and that went really haywire, and a lot of people started dying and getting sick. And they're like, oh, well, we're doing such a great job with our foundation. Are you really? Really? You're doing a great job because nobody in the U.S. is paying any attention to you, and because even though the FDA is feckless and crooked, at least it has some kind of oversight. Not in other countries, it doesn't, right? So these guys, they go around the globe and they use people as human guinea pigs with these crazy vaccines. This guy is like, he's maniacal, Bill Gates, and the wife is no better. She's, I mean, am I wrong about this?
I don't think so. I mean, we've heard about how Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was an admitted eugenicist. They still give out that Margaret Sanger award. They put all those Planned Parenthoods initially into predominantly black neighborhoods and try to encourage abortions among black people.
They do. They encourage them, because I grew up in a very diverse neighborhoods, in lower income. And that was like the thing, because I was friends with a lot of black girls. And they were like, yeah, it's no big deal. I'm like, no, it's a big deal. You don't want to go through that. And they're like, nah, it's no big deal. Just go down to clinic. I'm like, you don't want to put yourself through that. You got to be a little bit more discerning. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they're just like, that's just the way it is. It's almost like you're going out and you're making a regular doctor's appointment. They didn't think anything of it. And not just African-American girls, but also white girls I call it under the poverty line. I don't know how else to say it. I'm so afraid to be politically incorrect. God forbid you say one thing wrong.
The whole thing gets wiped off of YouTube.
It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's like I don't know what to call it. We were poor kids, and you don't see. Listen, when you're poor, you don't see things through. There is no racial prism. You're all screwed. Yeah, you don't see this guy's black. Maybe initially, if you move into a neighborhood, you see things that way. But after a while, you all get to know everybody. You have Puerto Ricans, and you have Hispanics and blacks and whites, and you're all kids, right? You're all preteens and stuff. You're all screwed. And your parents are all out working. So you're kind of, left to fend for yourself. There's no like race wars and gang wars. You're just trying to figure out how to hustle and where you're going to go with your life. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. So that's that. So
I think it's still true, Mike. It's less to do with racial status and more to do with economic status. I mean, you look at somebody like Jussie Smollett. He's, seems to be friends with Obama and friends with Kamala Harris, and he's been tangling with the Chicago PD there for over a year. Vastly different than if somebody who was broke, whether they were white or black, got into that situation. You just wouldn't even necessarily have the option of getting a lawyer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and they use now these real slick charlatans in the black community, so to speak, use the impoverished blacks, African Americans, and even the whites, and they pretend that there's this like massive uprising in lower income communities where you feel like Black Lives Matter, right? Oh, that's not how people feel under the poverty line. They're just hustling. They all recognize that they're screwed. But these folks sell and they package these charlatans. They're race hustlers. They package these things to make it seem like, oh, this is a groundswell in poor communities. No, it's not. When you live in a poor community, you are literally surviving every day to get to the next day. There's no like, oh, we're going to go on vacation in 6 months. Oh, for Christmas, we plan on going here. We plan on summering here. You're literally thinking about food. You're thinking about making your heat bills in the winter and stretching your dollars and stuff like that. There's no time for Norma Ray bullshit in the street. You don't have that. So the very fact
an emergency could be something like, oh man, the toilet broke. We don't have money for a plumber. How do you fix that? We need to use the toilet. Those type of things really occupy your attention when you don't have an easy solution.
Or the guy up above you, or lives above you, his toilet broke, and now you lost
Flooding.
Everything. And guess what? You don't have any renter's insurance because you couldn't afford it, and you didn't have anything worth fucking insuring anyhow, right? Because
now you got nothing.
Now you got everything's wet, okay, and now you got nothing. So what are you going to do, right? Your clothes are wet. I mean, these are things that happen, right? Where's the money? Where's the $1 billion from Bank of America that went to Black Lives Matter? And I've said it to you before. Those dollars never make it back to the street, to the people that really need it, right? Everybody picks at these things, right? Like a sticky bun. You put out a big sticky bun on the table, and everybody takes a little piece, and before you know it, if you're late to the party, you get to lick the plate. You know what I mean? That's like what it's like when you grow up in poor communities. These people are not in this. Do you see who's in the streets?
Yeah, it's all white people with fancy bikes.
With $200 shoes. I saw somebody running wild. I said, it's like a pair of True Religion jeans, like $300. Really? My whole wardrobe was worth $300, maybe. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you this, Mike, because there's been a lot of talk about how Thousand Currents is connected to this Act Blue, and there's all these different things that are using the Black Lives Matter name to raise money, but aren't properly registered in New York and other states. Then we had this article last week saying that Joe Biden was going to break a record, $300 million raised in August. How do we know that this money wasn't redirected to him from charities that people presumed were Black Lives Matter?
It doesn't matter because he's in the club, right? He's on the Democratic side. Remember how much money Obama was breaking, fundraising record after fundraising record, and then it came out, oh, a lot of that money is coming from overseas. Oh, that's against FEC rules and FEC guidelines. Oh, no problem. The guy is like, he's black and he's running for president. You can't be too harsh. So, whoa, wait a minute. This is against the law, right? Now, if Trump was doing that, or a GOP candidate was doing that, forget about it. You end up in prison. So it's like, it's very interesting. It's what Dick Morris was talking about, former advisor to President Clinton, was saying that if this year's election, right, if it goes to the courts and it's decided in the courts, the way that things have changed since 2000, when that election went to the courts for 39 days, whatever it was. The way that the courts have been changed since then, packed with Democrats, that it's a stacked deck.
Good point.
And in these states that are swing states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, right? The courts are all loaded with Dems, and the government are all loaded with Dems, right? Dem governors, Dem courts, and what? It goes to an appeals court, then it goes up the ladder. Morris is talking about it goes up the ladder to the Supreme Court. Who's the deciding vote on a split court? John Roberts. How do you think he's going to vote? You think he's going to vote for the GOP? No, he never votes for the GOP. The guy is definitely he's a Democrat in sheep and wolf's clothing, so to speak. So you look at all these things, and it's one thing after another, and it's a stacked deck. Like we're talking about, that's been the theme on this show for so long. Stacked decks.
It almost seems like that's their strategy, Mike, to force this election to go to some sort of court judgment and let these political hacks decide rather than people voting.
Well, look what they did. That didn't happen in 2016 because I think they were caught quite off guard. Even on election night, up until about 10:30 at night Eastern Standard Time, there were giddy little bitches on TV saying, oh, this is a big win for Hillary. And then people are like, wait a minute, it doesn't look so good. And you see their faces, like, I'll never forget their faces of like Megyn Kelly, just like staring at the camera like, what? This guy's going to win? And so why would they want that to happen again? You're not supposed to have a voice out here. I mean, they teach you that in school, but it's not reality. You know, we've found that out so many different times. I mean, just look at whatever state you're living in, and your governor decides exactly massive infringements on your civil rights and civil liberties, right? You don't have any rights. You don't have any rights. They can be negated by some idiot like Cuomo. I mean, you're living this every day. You're living this every day. I'm living in Pennsylvania with this idiot wolf. And millions of people around the country in different states are living this as well. So
how can Cuomo say that Trump caused the New York coronavirus outbreak? That's just...
Well, he has to say that. The guy is basically, he should be on trial for manslaughter. So what's he going to say, you know? These guys are serial liars. They have no soul. They have no moral compass. They're morally bankrupt. What do you expect him to say? He's insane. He's literally insane. These people, they're literally on a different intellectual plateau, and that plateau is insanity.
He's trying to redirect the social engineering here. He's saying the China virus got on a plane and went to Europe. During the DNC, he called it the European virus. This is all just like children bickering. It's absolutely absurd. I can't believe that Andrew Cuomo is saying this kind of stuff.
Well, I'll talk about some FBI stuff tonight, too, when we go to the main show. And I'll show you exactly what a guy like William Barr has been doing. William Barr should be all over this in a criminal way. They're not even looking at this criminally. There's no indication that they're going to look at these governors criminally. I'm not surprised, right? But if we had a functional Justice Department, especially under a GOP administration, a guy like Cuomo wouldn't say anything. He would say, "I can't comment on it because there's a lot of stuff going on, and it could be investigations, it could be litigation, right?" Instead, he's out running his mouth like a maniac. He has no fear of any repercussions on this, any reprisals, none whatsoever. And there's no indication that there will be. So that's what happens when your entire system breaks down. And your DOJ is just a rubber stamp of the beautiful people, of the elites, That's the problem. And we're all sitting out here, and it's hurting us and affecting our life directly. And these maniacs are running the show. And by the way, running it into the ground because they're not very good at what they do to begin with, except for being tyrannical. They're very good at that.
They're good at directing funds to companies that their friends own, that their sisters own.
But that's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about. That's why somebody like Ilhan Omar can pay her husband's consulting business $1 million.
Nothing happened
from campaign funds, right?
Nothing happened.
Is she even legally here? The FBI won't touch that with a pole. They won't touch it with a pole. What? Why? She hits all the check boxes. She's a woman. Okay. She's a Muslim. Okay. Those are the only 2 check boxes you have to hit. those are the only 2 you got to hit. 3, she's from a different country. Okay. So those are 3 areas people don't want to go into and touch whatsoever when they're politically correct. The entire system, as we know, is politically correct. Like we said earlier, you can't even say a wrong thing. God forbid. God forbid you make a mistake on your show, or I ever said something on this show live, and it was just taken out of context. Like I used to say, yeah, this guy and his winged monkeys, they're out of control. Now that references to Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch of the West, I don't think she was white or black. I remember her being green. So is it an affront to green people now? Yeah. The monkeys were green. She was green. And people say, that's racist. No, it's not.
You're going to get a letter from the Jaundice Society of America. You don't make fun of green people.
You can't. You have to be careful with everything you say, right? Unless you're on the other side of the aisle. And then this Omar chick, she's very smart and manipulative. And then she uses that against everybody because she's almost untouchable. And she's proven that she's untouchable. I mean, the journalist got kicked off of Twitter and social media like Laura Loomer for saying that, hey, this broad is here illegally.
Yeah.
And they said, you can't say that. There's no proof. And guess what? The FBI investigated it. And according to many sources, they said, yeah, she basically is here illegally, but we're not going to touch it. Or she's probably here illegally, or there's some kind of marriage fraud involved. It's like, wait a minute. What did you call those people for this? If now you're saying that it's true and you're not going to do anything, it doesn't make it. So it's literally insane. You have to like walk around and tiptoe around on somebody who may not even be here legally. And that's doesn't even matter if you're here illegally or not, or whether you broke laws to get here. Now you're breaking laws while you're here. Funneling
we got some breakup
Who knows
happening,
how many times this chick's
Mike.
been married?
Can you hear me? You're breaking up a little bit there. I don't know why Comcast is always letting us down. I know you recently upgraded the connection, but you know what? We're in a moment where we need to get everybody ready for the transition over to the sponsor-exclusive segment.
Shut up.
So I just want to remind everybody to tune in on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/truepundit, and subscribestar.com, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Don't forget, late night tonight, early morning, you're going to have a new episode of the Thomas Paine podcast. And of course, sponsors of True Pundit on Subscribestar and Patreon get access to the video version of Paine in the Morning with no ad breaks. So that's a good way to listen to Mike's daily podcasts and also support True Pundit. And don't forget, you can get your news every day from True Pundit. That's another good thing for people to do. So, Mike, we'll be back in just about 3 minutes on Patreon and Subscribestar.
Yeah, cool, man. Lot of
get
stuff
everybody to
Thanks,
knock off the Fortnite or whatever it is that's sucking up the bandwidth.
You know what? We never have a problem when it goes to Patreon. It's only YouTube.
That's true.
It's the weirdest thing. That's the weirdest thing. Yeah.
Well, we'll be there in just a minute. We'll see everybody on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, man.